Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Johnson, can I just ask you one more time to tell us about your guest, your special guest who's with you?
His name is Roger Perino. He's sitting right there. He doesn't like to be the center of attention. He is a Marine, and I met him when we worked drug cases together 30 years ago. And on September 11th, 2001, he was a New York City police detective working in Midtown and saw what was happening, ran into harm's way, and frankly was almost one of the people we had a moment of silence for, and was the recipient of the Medal of Valor from the mayor. Went on, at my recommendation, to be appointed by Governor Cuomo to be Commissioner of Homeland Security for New York State.
Thank you for that. And Detective Commissioner, I thought it would be appropriate we might just take a moment to honor you, because I notice as I look around here, I see men and women wearing the uniform of the United States. I see some of New York's finest here. I've got to talk with some of the families of the survivors. This building, this place is such a monument to the courage of folks like you who put on this uniform and who protect us every day and who run towards danger. And here you are, a living monument to that. So I don't want to miss this opportunity to say thank you for what you did, and to give everybody here a chance to say to you and to all of you here in this building who are wearing uniform, who are protecting us, who are serving us, thank you for protecting us. Thank you for representing the best of New York and the best of America. So thank you very much, Detective. I do want to raise an issue now that has not been raised yet, but is extremely important to, I believe, the security of the American homeland, and certainly to the security of my state. I represent the state of Missouri. I spent part of my time in August when I was home in Missouri traveling around some of the most economically distressed counties in my state. There's 114 counties in Missouri, and I chose to visit some of those that don't normally get visits from the press and media and so forth. And something that every single person, every single one, in every single community that I visited told me about was the epidemic of drug abuse that is crippling and killing entire communities, literally killing families, schools. It's unbelievable. And in my state, it's overwhelmingly meth. And it is coming, according to the federal government, it is coming overwhelmingly across the southern border. Just according to the 2018 DEA National Drug Threat Assessment report, most of the meth available in the country, and certainly in the state of Missouri, is produced in Mexico and is smuggled across the southwest border. Missouri has seen a 52% increase in meth addiction treatment admissions in the last 7 years, according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. It is hard for me to describe to you unless you were to visit and to see what this epidemic of drug abuse is doing to the towns and families and schools in my state, what a crisis this is. And so I want to ask about what we can give voice, first of all, to that crisis, and ask what it is we can do to address this very real crisis that is being driven by what is going on the border. And I think, Secretary Napolitano, let me just start with you, because I think I must have misunderstood you. I read your testimony. I heard you say in your opening remarks that you did not think that the border represents any threat to the homeland. I must have misunderstood you, because surely you couldn't have meant that the people in my state who are losing their lives, losing their children, losing their family members, the law enforcement who are completely overwhelmed by this epidemic that is coming across the border. I mean, surely that constitutes a threat to the security of the people of this country. I mean, don't you agree with that?
Look, I think the border, as I said, it's a zone to be managed. It is certainly an area where law enforcement needs to be engaged in terms of drug smuggling and gun smuggling and the like. It requires a whole of government effort. It requires partnership with Mexico. in terms of how the ports themselves are managed, and that's where, when smuggling occurs, the bulk of it occurs through the ports of entry. It requires using the best available technology for inspection of vehicles and for manifesting of cargo and the like. What I mean to suggest is that the border itself is not the number one threat to the safety and security of the American people, despite the overwhelming public attention being drawn to the border as the function of DHS.
But you think that it is a threat. You said in your testimony, both this morning and in your written testimony, you didn't think it was a threat at all. Not the number one threat, but no threat, that it just isn't a threat to Homeland Security. I can't understand that. And what concerns me about it is, it seems to be increasingly the position of some members of your party who say it's also not a threat at all. And I don't understand how that can be the case, given the threat that my state and the people in my communities are facing. If we don't do something to stem the flow of illegal drugs across that border, I don't know what these folks are going to do. And I just don't understand when people say it's just not a threat.
I think we need to look for areas of agreement. I think
but is it a threat?
We can all
Can we agree on that?
We can all agree that we deserve a safe and secure border, that the border needs to be enforced. And you won't get any question about that from me. The way I wrote my testimony, however, was to say that the border is a zone. It's a zone to be managed in terms of threat. But it is not the number one threat to the safety and security of the American people. When you talk about drugs, right, and I understand the opioid epidemic and the meth epidemic. I was a local state prosecutor. I was a federal prosecutor. I understand this phenomenon very well. I reach out and sympathize, empathize with the people of Missouri and other states across this country who have experienced the devastation caused by this epidemic. I think what we need to be looking for is how do we prevent the importation of drugs? How do we deal with addiction as a disease, as a country? That's really where the threat is, not in terms of overall border management, not in terms of a wall between the United States and Mexico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see my time's expired.